Thank you. We have a last minute entry. It's Taylor Ward. I've already introduced him, and he would like to present.
I'm not gonna lie, I submitted this because I had to. But I'm very pleasantly surprised that it was actually selected. And just for posterity, this is actually a true story. I remember when I was about 14 years old, riding in the car with my mother. We'd just driven over I-94 from the Twin Cities into Wisconsin. I don't honestly recall why we're in Minnesota, possibly visiting my grandmother. I was in a good mood, which was abnormal for me since I suffered from depression at the time. My mother, being the chatty woman that she was and still is, just couldn't stand the empty silence, so she was yammering on and on. It wasn't like she had no idea what she was doing. She was trying to get me to connect with her, draw me out. She was trying in her own way to help me. I knew it, but my mother's way of doing things just bothered me. I wanted space to think. She wanted me to be around people. Do one chore and ask me to do another just as I was leaving to go do my own thing. It was never a list of things. It was just one after another as soon as I was done. To be totally honest, it pissed me off to no end. She would talk incessantly about stupid, pointless things that I didn't care about. It was infuriating, and I mean that in the actual sense of fury. In the car, I was doing my best to ignore her, but she asked me a question that for some unknown reason I felt compelled to respond. Why do you think some white lines are long and some white lines are abbreviated? She was talking about the road and the differing markers between lanes. I wasn't sure at the time since I was too young to drive. Still, intrigued despite myself, I pondered this for a moment. Then, realizing something I hadn't given conscious thought to before, I responded, I think they denote a turn-only lane. And she turned and gaped at me with this proud smile on her face. I remember this conversation because of that moment specifically. I do not know why else it would stand out in my memory, but it does. It's the craziest thing. I still remember it to this day, almost 20 years later. You know what, she said, I think you might be right. For my mother, who is and always has been a nagger, who always points out my flaws and downfalls and plans and ideas, telling me I was right was a very big thing. For years, that little 3-minute conversation formed a cornerstone in my life. It wasn't an epiphany. I didn't have a reality-changing twist added to my personality overnight. The small, germinating seed of something new was there, though. For me, depression wasn't feeling sad or lonely. It was a feeling of hopelessness wrapped in frustration and rage. I couldn't change things no matter how hard I tried, so there was no point trying. Then I got in trouble for not trying. That just made it worse. To be fair, my parents tried to help, but their methods were wrong. Not wrong as in cruel or distant. Not wrong as in painful or uncaring. They didn't fit me. It didn't factor in my needs at the time. It was all about how everyone else would want help in my situation. I didn't want medication. I didn't need counseling. I needed a place where I could talk and someone would listen without offering 1,001 solutions to a problem they didn't understand. I needed acceptance of who I was, which wasn't something I felt. My mom tried to prevent every disaster she saw coming, and I felt smothered. My father was the type to watch me stick the proverbial fork in the outlet and then turn and say, "Not gonna do that again, are you?" Sure, he would head off the truly dangerous stuff, but for the most part it was correction after the fact. Never once did I feel like he was coaching to prevent future mistakes, just showing me where I screwed up. They parented as best they could, to be fair, but again, their solutions factored in what they thought I needed, not what I said I wanted. I didn't feel like my desires and input mattered, and that was one of the factors, looking back now, that only served to push me farther away. The 3-minute conversation with my mom, however, left me with this little seed, and it just sat there for months. Not growing, not flowering, just frickin' sitting there, like a lump. I admit I sympathized. But it was there, and slowly the knowledge that I could see it, feel it, was the catalyst that helped me do something about it. Just knowing that there was something I could do that would make my parents proud of me, even if it was something as ridiculously small as offering an opinion on the most mundane subject in the history of boredom. It was important. Things I did could actually matter to other people in a positive way. It took time to nurture, though, and I often grew angry, but I didn't want to be angry forever. Being so damn pissed off every damn day was exhausting. I was still angry, but a tiny amount of self-worth just pushed its way in. I'll admit there were a lot of times I didn't want it to. It's not that the cure was worse than the disease, it was the feeling that somehow I was broken. Letting go of the anger and apathy would require admitting that I wasn't whole. It would require admitting that something was wrong with me, not everyone else. As much as I hated who I was and what my life was like, at least it was familiar. I had no idea who I'd see when I finally took an honest look in the mirror. That thought terrified me. Not knowing who I was without rage, without the apathy. It's hard to describe how anger and apathy seem like opposites when for me they were so closely intertwined that I couldn't separate them. I didn't know who I'd be if I separated them from myself. There was no epiphany, there was no big eureka moment. It was just a shadow of a fragment of a Zephyrus idea too small to even attach to hope. But it caught and it wouldn't